好，这今天的议程。好，那一如往常，我们还是从差不多7点半开始。那今天我们好，我们是台北 dbt Meetup，然后主办人是我那个 Alan、Damon 还有 Karen。好，欢迎大家来参加。然后这是小弟我，这个开艺人公司。然后重点是这一张。好。就是如果大家还没有加入 dbt community 的，麻烦帮我用那个扫一下 QR code， 然后你就可以加入 dbt community 的 Slack， 然后可以去找 local 台北 shop local 台北。那为什么不会有台湾呢？因为它的这个dbt 它在分那个地区的时候是以城市为单位。所以各位如果台中、高雄来的朋友，回家乡也可以办一个台中的 dbt Meetup。然后，看这个是 D 卡的嘛？好，那这个也是要拜托大家扫一下 QR code 的，因为这个呢是 D 卡的那个 QR code， 我们要非常感谢我们的
我补充说明一下，对，就是接续刚刚 Lawrence 讲，就是 D 卡提供给我们的场地。然后呢，其实我们有进来的话，大家都要填这个，就是因为场地的安全的关系，所以那也会你在过程中你也可以submit你的想法，就是回馈给我们，就是大家可以扫了扣，然后留下来，就活动结束的时候填，或是你要先填都可以，那记得帮我们填，然后我们才会有很棒的场地继续用下去。谢谢大家。
这个也是超重要，因为D 卡是我们找到的场地里面最好的场地。好，然后这是今天的 agenda。好，然后我们就来欢迎 Hamza 来他是 LightDash 的 CEO， 他来介绍他们公司的产品，还给我们一个很棒的 talk。好，鼓掌欢迎一下吧。
Hamza does say, today we'll present some demo, right?
Yes, exactly. So. Yeah. I'll introduce myself, and then today I want to try and make it a bit interactive. So I'm going to try and do some live demos, and hopefully they'll work. But I've never done them before, so we're going to do them together. A little bit about me, just a quick introduction. So my name is Hamza. I'm one of the founders of LightDash. My background is in software engineering. That's what I did for a long time. I found the world of data through my last company that I worked at, where I essentially was managing our data team. And what I wanted was our data team to work like software engineers. I wanted them to use the best practice that software engineering teams have been using for a long time. And so back in 2017 or 18, I discovered dbt very, very early when it was still Fishtown Analytics. And I loved it because not just because it helped me transform SQL in the warehouse, but mainly because it helped change the mindset of, I think, a generation of data people who started thinking more like software engineers. And it introduced things like Git, version control, CI/CD, all these processes that have made software engineering teams so powerful were now available to data people. And that made me really happy. The part that didn't make me happy when it came to data was the BI layer. I think most people here will have used a BI platform, whether it's Metabase or Tableau or Looker or Power BI or something else. For me, they're very expensive and they tend to not be that friendly if you are technical. So if you're someone who knows how to write SQL, or you write some Python, or you use code, BI tools aren't made for you. They're made to be clicked around in a UI. And so LightDash was really started as an open source tool. So I'm an engineer. I'm very skeptical if a tool isn't open source. So we made LightDash open source. And then I wanted it to work like software. So it runs as code. What that means is everything in LightDash can be version controlled, can be Git committed, all the rest of it. LightDash started about 4 years ago. We've raised a couple rounds of funding from investors. We went through Y Combinator in the US, and we're about 30 people around the world currently, hiring as well, which we can talk about at the end. But it's built to work very closely with dbt. Before we talk about Agentic BI, I want to talk a little about semantic BI. Is everyone here familiar with semantic layers? If I do like a quick show of hands, who has heard the term semantic layer? Okay. Okay, hopefully most folks, about 50% of people. These slides are in the wrong order, so I'm going to go to this one first, and then I'll come back. So for anyone who isn't aware of a semantic layer, essentially what it does is it provides a consistent view of like business metrics across your company. So if anyone was at my talk yesterday, the example I gave was revenue. Everybody understands revenue, but very few people know how to calculate it. And ideally, you want everyone to be using the same calculation. And so a semantic layer solves this problem of having single definition used in multiple places. And we've done that for a lot of years. That's not new. I think what's new is that now AI agents can use those semantic layers to actually answer data questions for us. So humans aren't the only people using them. It's now actually AI tools and AI agents that are consuming the semantic layer. Some people have started calling it a context layer, which is another name for it, but it's all the same. Don't buy a context layer. You can just use the semantic layer. It's totally fine. And these are some of the benefits. Hopefully, most of these people already know. I don't want to spend too long on this, but I'm not trying to sell Lightdash too much. But the idea is to give you a bit of background into how Lightdash works kind of under the hood. What this means for end users. So I'm going to do two demos today. One is going to be for end users, like what does this look like for an end user who wants to ask questions? And the second is how can our lives as developers change? So the first one I want to talk about is as an end user, what does having semantic BI enable me to do? And here's an example. I've got an AI agent set up with a marketing team. I'm going to ask it a pretty simple question. So I've asked it for partner order volume over the last 6 months. And what's happening here is it's not doing text to SQL. It's actually doing text to semantic layer. So it's trying to figure out what metrics can I use to actually build this particular chart and return an answer to the end user. So here, Lightdash is explaining exactly what metrics it's using, what the model is trying to decide what to pick up, and then hopefully end of it, we get a result. Okay. So it's given us a nice answer. That was a good one, it worked. From here, you can save stuff and kind of add it back to your project if you need to. You can save it, add it to a dashboard, all this sort of stuff. You can see the SQL. So there's a lot of features that are available there. Cool, that's a simple example. Okay, where do I want to go from here? Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Give me 1 minute, I'll pull it back. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna switch from there to another demo in a second. But I'll take a break. Any questions at this point? By the way, I want people to ask questions throughout. We don't have to do them at the end. Any questions at this point or anything that people wanted to mention or bring up? I'm kind of curious to hear from the audience at the same time.
Okay.
So for non-technical users, how do they kind of check or know the result is correct? Because I think for technical person, I can look at the SQL and read the SQL kind of to, okay, this sounds makes sense. But for how do non-technical business users to kind of validate the result?
It's a good question. So most people are going to use the semantic layer to understand these questions. And so this is only using metrics that I've made available to it. So you're kind of putting your users on rails and only saying like, these are the 10 metrics that the user can query. And those are the only ones that I'm going to use to develop a response. That's kind of how we try and get people only to a right answer. So a lot of the time the LLM will actually say, I can't answer that question. So saying no is kind of a feature. Does that answer the question?
有人有问题吗？哦，酷。
I have no question. I really love your the process, reviewing the whole process, like you mentioned yesterday, the transparency process and make user can trust. I really love you UI.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yesterday, I talked a lot about trust. It's a big part of building the system. This is one example where we say how this chart was built. It's kind of all in the idea of trying to show the user trust.
And I have a question. So, like, if I want to dive in this chart, like, how would I do that?
So you can interact with it just like you would any other chart. So you can say, like, show me the data that sits underneath it. You can now see the individual records that sit below that particular number. I can drill into it and say, like, I want to see this number, break it down by
drill down.
Something else, whatever you want to do.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so the chart type was automatically detected. Choose the best, right?
Yeah, so it shows the best chart type, but you can obviously change it. You can make it something else, or I could tell it, say make it a pie chart. It's probably not a good chart type for this, but let's see what it does. Yes, you can. The agent tries to pick the best chart type. You can obviously aggregate it from there and kind of customize it as much as you want.
Cool.
Any other questions? Someone
yeah, there's one on the online. So people asking, like, any recommendation when designing the semantic layer. For example, if the source table are very complicated or from multiple systems, what should we take care when designing the semantic layer?
My advice is always to start simple. So every company's data is complex, but starting with the smallest, simplest metrics and then building up to the most complex ones tends to be the best example. It's very rare that starting with the most complex one is the right way to begin. Getting like a quick win really early is like my recommendation.
Then a following question, I'm sorry. A following question about that. So if when people are adopting this tool, so they need to make clear about the semantic layer, and then how do they, would that be hard for them to compare what they have been seeing in the historical data, because the definition may change because they're building the semantic layer. They finally get clear what the definition is on. So maybe they will see different number from the historical data, and how do they validate that's actually correct than before?
That's a good question. I think the first time you build your semantic layer is probably the hardest bit, because the definition, hopefully the definition is the same as what you had before. You're just saving it and committing it to a Git repo, but the actual definition should be the same. If you're making a new definition, that might be a problem.
Yeah, but sometimes there's just no definition.
That's true. Or there's no definition. It's true.
Yeah.
I've got a question about, do you have any experience of multi-languages, like other languages? Obviously now it's in English, but what if there was multi-languages, and how would that go? And I just want to know.
Cool.
So I tried doing an example earlier.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
So the so here, just the question I asked is the same question. So yeah, the model can handle multiple languages quite well.
Yep.
And you can even customize so that the labels, this example, the labels are still in English, but you can have the labels be whatever language you want them to be in.
Cool. So, obviously, you just talked about the semantic layer and stuff of different teams. Do you do any comparisons or like marketing, obviously, to sales or something? I'm not sure if you have any comparisons
in the semantic layer, you mean?
Or display of here, like two different teams, they want to see the same language or revenue or something.
I don't have an example here, but what I've got is I've got a marketing team analyst.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And then you can see I've got a finance one.
If you talk to the same thing, if you ask the same question, would they be the same or
I hope so. Let's find out.
Okay.
Let's try. I'm going to copy this question. Let's try asking the finance.
Should be the same or no?
It should be the same. In this particular one, it should be the same because this is a very simple semantic layer. If it's not, then that'll be be embarrassing.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
Usually the semantic is for the whole company
Yes.
rather than for the departments.
Yeah.
So they should all have one meaning.
They'll have one meaning, but they can often have like different use cases for the same metric.
Also, how would you build that into like a finance or in the marketing?
So usually I think the AI just needs to know the use case for a particular team.
Okay.
Yeah. Why finance team wants to use it versus why marketing wants to use it.
Okay.
I think these look similar.
Well, there's another question online. So what kind of AI models are embedded in the agents? I think I see that GPT, yeah.
Yeah, so Lightdash, we use loads of different models, GPT models, Anthropic, Gemini, they all work. So it kind of depends on which one you want to use. Do people have a preference? I'm curious, like what models are people using here mostly for their work?
Cloud? Anyone using cloud? Yeah, and anyone using OpenAI, GPT things? No? Okay.
A lot of Claude users. I like it. Okay.
Can we use a local model like
You can.
OpenAI compatible things or like?
If it's OpenAI compatible, you can use it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So the second half of what I want to talk about is like what it looks like as a developer. And this idea of like BI as code. It's actually building a dashboard as code rather than building it through the UI. So we're familiar with clicking in a UI and building a dashboard. But what if we were to do it using Claude or Cursor? That's kind of what I want to do today. So I'm going to switch over to Cursor. Here. So I've got a new project. It has no charts, no dashboards. I've got some tables. That's kind of it. I could build a dashboard in the UI, but I don't want to. So what I did is I made this wireframe, this. And I'm going to ask Claude to build this. And I'm interested if it's going to work. Let me make sure I'm logged in first. So Lightdash has a CLI, so everything can run locally on your machine. So I'm just going to log into Lightdash. Okay, and then I'm going to install the Lightdash skills. I'll zoom in a little bit if this is a bit too small. I just realized. Let that finish. Sidebar. Okay, great. So all I'm going to tell Claude is I'm going to upload the image. So the image is there, and I'm going to tell it and we're going to leave it, and we're going to see what it does. It will probably take a few minutes for this to happen. It's going to actually not just build a dashboard. It's going to look for if there's any models or metrics it needs to build in the semantic layer. And then it's going to decide on the charts and dashboards, and hopefully it's going to look similar to what I uploaded. I actually don't even know if this data exists in the data set, so I'm not really giving it a lot to go on. While that's happening, I'm kind of curious. I want to ask people here, is anyone here using agents or AI on the BI side of stuff? If you're using a BI tool, have you tried connecting like a data agent or an AI agent? Like, I'm curious, any stories that people are willing to share?
Hi. In our company, we are currently using Databricks AI agent. So you have because all of our data are stored in the platform. So we can use a natural language to build our dashboard and keep it.
Okay, very cool. And you built that agent internally?
No, it is originally provided by Databricks, so we don't have to do anything.
That's quite cool.
Yes.
Oh, are you using Databricks, the AI BI, the Genie?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yes. Anyone else? I saw a few people nod. Any other Databricks users here? Okay.
Yes, I also do the same thing with my own project. Yeah, I use Databricks AI Genie to ask some question, and he will build the beautiful dashboard for me. But the skill or some chart, it can only do the simple chart. But if you want to build the complex chart, you still don't have the ability to do it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm very familiar with Databricks, so I'm curious to see how that goes. Let's see. Okay.
There's
So-
someone said that he or she like experiment with Tableau's building AI.
Ooh, I'm interested how Tableau's AI works. I've heard mixed reviews, but if you're willing to share in the chat, please share. We can make it anonymous. Okay, let's see what's happened. I think something's happened. Okay, so it's built something. Let's see if it can upload it. So it said it did something, but I didn't see it yet in the dashboard in Lightdash. I did say this was a live demo, so there is zero guarantee of success, but I'm an optimist by nature. Okay, it says it's done something. Let's find out. Okay, so there is a dashboard there, which was uploaded a minute ago. I didn't do it. You saw it was done by Claude. Let's see what. Oh, okay, not ideal. It's got a couple of errors there. Let's take a look. I actually think I know what happened here, so I'm going to try and fix it. Okay, so we're going to get it to upload everything. So it was missing some charts, and so it thought that the UI thinks that stuff has been deleted. So fingers crossed, this time it'll get it right. So the funny thing is, so far, I've probably spent less than like a minute of active time. All of the rest of it has just been like watching the agent do its work. Let's see if this is any better. Still hasn't done it. Okay. Okay, I've got one more idea. Bear with me, folks. So I'm gonna get it to start again, and what I'm gonna do. Oh no! Oh, don't worry, I got it. It's fine. No worries. Very good at one-handed typing. Okay. So I'm actually gonna just delete everything, and I'm gonna get it to start from scratch because I think what happened was I had something in there before, and I got a bit confused. So let's start again. If everyone's happy for me to do this again, I'm gonna run the same command. And I'm going to tell it, I'm going to give it even less. I'm going to say build this, please. Fingers crossed this time it will get it right. Hey.
Sorry. After your first call,
Yes.
the AI said it found something, it found an issue. Want me to fix it. So I'm thinking.
I saw the issue it was mentioning. It's not that one, but there is a different issue. Yeah. But thank you. No, this is what happens when you do live demos. But so something about Lightdash, we never do recorded demos. We decided really early on in the beginning of the company that I really hate when people do a recorded demo because that's how I know your product doesn't work, because you're unwilling to show me it working real time. So we decided if we're going to do a demo, it's always going to be live. And that way, if it works perfectly, you'll believe me. And if it doesn't work, like what happened now, we will get to debug live and you'll get to see what it's like. I way prefer that as an engineer. Hopefully you do too. And at the very least, this is fun to watch, even if it's embarrassing for me. But let's see how it goes. This time, let's follow along a little bit. So let's see what it's doing. So, oh no, please don't tell me it's done it again. Let's see. Let's see what it can do. And I will pay attention to the errors this time. But essentially what's happening here, you can see everything it's building. It's actually building the dashboards and charts in real time. The reason it can do this is because all the skills that are installed in Lightdash that we've provided tell it not only how to build a dashboard, but how to build a good dashboard. So you can say like, here's how to make a dashboard look good in terms of layout. Here's where you should put KPIs. Here's where you should put drill downs. Here's when you should use tabs. So it's trying to make like an impressive dashboard, not just like any dashboard. Okay, it's looking good so far. No linting errors. Last time we had a couple. Okay. It's doing
a question
one
here. So
yes.
Is there any chance that we can see the plan before it start running? Because yeah, that's the way like we like, at least me like prefer doing, at least I can see what it's trying to do, and then if there's anything error, then I can at least like debugging before it start like already consuming a lot of token.
Yes, yeah, it's a really good question. So yeah, at the moment I told it not to do that, and I just went straight in. But it's much more common to start with a plan. I'm using quite like a flippant demo here, but a much more realistic example is to say like, help me plan a KPI dashboard, and it's going to go through and give you a plan. And once you're done with the plan, you can then say like, okay, now go and execute it. While this is running, actually the planning you can also do in the UI. So if I was to ask the analyst here, I could tell it like, hey, like help me build, like as an end user, I could say, I'm trying to build a sales report. Help me build a plan for like a sales dashboard, and the agent will go through and build a plan for that sales dashboard for you. So you can do the same thing in the UI. The reason I'm using Claude Code is because Claude Code has access to way more functionality. It can literally do pixel perfect. It can move things by like 1 pixel in the UI perfectly. Whereas weirdly, doing it in the app, you're like restricted to whatever we've made available through the MCP or through the API. So Claude Code with the CLI is like incredibly powerful. Okay, let's see how it's getting on. All right, it's trying to do a bit more stuff. If this doesn't work, I've got another demo that we're going to do, which will 100% work. So we'll do that one afterwards. But hopefully this one will, and then we will kind of get to it. But so the interesting thing, one of the things I want to talk about why this functionality is so cool, is that we have customers now that the only way they build their dashboards is through code. They don't use the UI anymore. Even if someone's like, can you add a filter to this? They're like, I'll just do it through Claude. I'm not even going to click in the UI to say add a filter. One of the really cool things is that it means the time to build a dashboard for a data person previously might have been 1 day. You'd be like, it's going to take 1 day to build a dashboard that's good enough to share with the exec team, to send to your CEO or COO or CFO. Now that might be 2 or 3 minutes. So actually we have data teams that are producing like 100 dashboards a day. That sounds crazy. I think most data people are like, that sounds like my worst nightmare. I don't want to build 100 dashboards a day. But you're actually not. You're just orchestrating agents and getting them to build them, and then you're reviewing the output. Just saying like, yep, this looks good, ship it, and then send it to the user. And so it's the cycle time of someone asking a question and getting an answer is so short. It goes from hours to minutes. And you can have 5 or 6 Claude Code sessions running at once. So you could be answering 10 questions at once. It's a really, really phenomenal way of working, where I think for a long time, we used to think of dashboards as like a lot of dashboards as a problem. You want to have as few dashboards as possible. But the problem is everybody wants a very personal dashboard for them. Finance wants something, operations wants something, and then people in operations wants their own version of, and like maintaining that is really expensive. It takes a lot of time. But actually now the maintenance is 0, because you could just ask Claude to say like, hey, go through and update everything. I've updated something in my dbt model. It affects 2,000 dashboards. It's as code, it can do it like instantly. So it's like a very, very different way of working, and it actually makes it enjoyable. I like building dashboards when they're built as code. I hate building dashboards when I have to click through in a UI. So it's a totally different paradigm. I think it's hopefully the way teams are always going to work.
Then a question about, so since that's so simple and so easy to build dashboard, does that mean that people no longer need to maintain a dashboard because they just ask and create a new one? But then is that, I don't know, is that would that create any problem about like first the consistency of like how people looking at different dashboard? Maybe the metric is still the same, but the way they present that may be different from like different people creating different dashboard, but looking at the same metric. And the other thing is that would that be kind of wasted, though maybe not a large cost, but would that be a waste of like creating repeating charts for the same metric?
So on the second question, it might be, but I don't think it matters because I think it's only a waste if it's expensive.
Yeah.
But if the cost of producing the dashboard is zero, then every dashboard can be single purpose. I'm being very extreme. I'm giving you a very extreme example. In reality, you wouldn't go that far. But like the idea is like dashboards are almost disposable. You can build a perfect dashboard. Once it's been used, you can get rid of it. Will you still have dashboards that are key for the company? 100%. You're going to have, we call it internally, we have this thing we call medallion architecture, where you have like a gold dashboard, silver, and it's more common in data engineering where people have like gold data pipelines, silver and bronze. And you have the same thing, I think, in BI, where companies say like our core company KPI dashboards, those are gold and like nobody can change them and nobody should change them. They're very restricted. Everything else, like, you know, where it's kind of people should be able to freely build on.
So like when user asking question, then the agent may respond like, hey, there's already a dashboard here, then you can take a look. You don't need to build a new one.
Yeah, 100%. So the way the Lightdash AI agent, the one that I showed you in the UI, if you ask it a question that is already answered by a dashboard, it's going to do that first. So it looks through the content and says like, I actually think we've got a dashboard that answers your question. I'm just going to show you that rather than like trying to generate a new query every single time. Okay, I'm curious to see what it did. It said it did half an upload. Let's see how far it got, if we still have some errors. Okay, it's done some stuff. Okay, we're getting closer. Okay, so I'm going to remove the filter. Okay, nice, we have data. Thank you. And as a reminder, this is what I uploaded. So I said, give me revenue on the top. How close did it get? Let's see. So I had revenue on the top, orders, the top product, conversion rate, a map, and a revenue chart. And then was there anything below it? Yeah, okay, sales reps and order status. I actually don't think this data has sales reps. Let's find out. Okay, so there's our revenue chart. We have everything at the top like expected, and it's actually quite cool. So I just told it I want to have these filters, and it's added them here at the top. So I've got my date filter, my region filter, my product filter. I've got these two charts at the bottom. So it's a cool start. But let's see. Okay, I think it might have done something else. See what it's tried to do. Okay, so now I'm going to go even further, and I'm going to say like, this is a great start, but actually, so I'm going to tell it, this is a good start, but let's be honest, this dashboard is kind of like your first dashboard you've ever built. Nothing kind of crazy that I couldn't do myself in like half an hour or 40 minutes. Although maybe the map takes a little bit longer. So now I'm going to tell it, all I've said to it is, make this way more professional because I need to share this with stakeholders. So I can't send this. Please make it way more interactive. Hopefully it's going to try and design some new bits and pieces. And so here's, it's decided what it's doing. So it's saying, I'm going to polish the existing dashboard end to end. I'm going to change the layout, change the styling, but I'm going to keep the same core metrics. So we still want to show the same data. We just want to like make it look a lot better. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know if other people have this experience, but for me, I probably spend, when I'm building a dashboard manually, like 20% of the time is getting the data, and it's like, the data is correct. And then the other 80% of the time is like, how do I make it look so that the end user understands it? You know, like how will they look at it and actually be like, what's going on here, without having to come back and ask me? And I have to tell them like, oh, it's because I used a line chart and you were expecting a bar chart or whatever it might be. And that's really annoying for a data person because we're not necessarily designers. But that's kind of where the Lightdash skills come in. So we've actually built a system that has learned from thousands and thousands of dashboards that we've been building over the years. And we've put all that information into these Lightdash skills, which are fully open source. So you don't have to pay us any money. You can go and install the Lightdash skills. And and it will tell your AI agent, whether you're using Lightdash or not, how to build really great charts. There's a skill in there just called like data analyst, and it basically understands how end users like to consume data. Okay, hopefully it's going to upload it. And then we'll do one more change after this if it wants to work with us. Yeah, this is kind of for me what the future looks like. I think for data, a lot of people are very interested in chatbots for their end users, which is the first demo I showed you. How do I get my end users to talk to the data more? I think that's really exciting, but I actually think this is way more real. You can do this like right now and have 100% confidence because you're a data person and data people are doing this job anyway. So all this is doing is helping speed up something that there's no problems of trust or anything else because you can go through and look at the data and validate it. But it's like tomorrow, if someone is asking you, hey, you need to build a new dashboard, you could do this like immediately and get 10x the amount of velocity that you've already got. I gave an example yesterday of a company that we're working with. I'll share them up here. So if anyone has heard of it, this is a company called Fowl AI, who are based in the US. They are like a generative AI company. They're super, super cool. They work with really, really cool companies. There are about 300 people at this company, something like that. It's in the hundreds. There's one data person in the whole company. His name's Kevin. Kevin is amazing. He's a brilliant data person, but even the best data person needs help. The reason that Kevin has been able to be so successful is that he's been basically building everything as code. So he has a Lightdash account. They have got loads and loads of dashboards for every single team, but Kevin didn't build any of them by hand. He went in and used Claude to build everything. The way Kevin's workflow looks now, in the morning, he looks through the requests that have come in there's like a data team Slack channel where people ask questions. He looks through those and he creates Jira tickets or linear tickets for each one. And then the agents pick those up and turn them into dashboards, turn them into requests, whatever it may be. And Kevin's job is just reviewing the output. Kevin is not having to write SQL anymore or build anything inside Lightdash. Okay, I think it's almost done. Let's take a look. See what it's done. Okay, I'm going to remove the filter because it's hiding all the data. Okay, it's done a little bit for us. It's not like amazing. It's like added a few new dashboards for us, added some charts and tiles. Let's take it like a step further. And I'm actually going to try and ask it to do two things at once. I'm going to say, so there's a baseball team in Taipei, right? Is it the CTBC or is that right? CTBC? CTBC Brothers, right? Yeah, is that the name of the team? I keep forgetting which way the letters go. It is? Okay. So I'm going to tell it, let's add just way more charts, make it more feature rich, and then let's theme it in the color scheme of the CTBC Brothers team and see what it does. I have never told it before what the color scheme is of the team. It's going to try and figure that stuff out itself. But this is to just kind of show you like how flexible this way of working can be. You can give it pretty much as vague an input as you want or as detailed as you want. So Karen, your example, obviously here I'm being very extreme in my demo tonight, but you could be much more clear and say, hey, I want to build a full plan with you. As part of the plan, I want to think about the style, the theme, the layout, and let's build a plan for each of those and then just one shot build the dashboard. Here we're doing a bit more iteratively to try and do some of this stuff. But I'm curious to see what comes out at the end. While that's running, let's see, I think I had just one more slide. Okay. Yeah, this is something kind of cool, and I don't have a demo I can share with you yet. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we're building, and I think will be the future of where I think we're going. as a company, but also hopefully as an industry. So one of the things that happened really quickly once we saw some of our customers building these dashboards as code is that if you think about what's next, like if you could build any dashboard you want, immediately people start thinking about the next level above a dashboard is like a data application. So like, hey, could I have something that's more interactive than a dashboard? Could I build a custom mobile app powered by my data? Like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, that sounds great. But you still want to have the governance, data security, row-level security, all that sort of stuff baked in. So you can't just point Claude Code or Lovable at your data warehouse and say, like, build me a mobile app. So one of the things that we're building at the moment is essentially that, the ability for you to just say, like, hey, I want to build a mobile app for my exec team so they can look at their KPIs on the go. And I want to make it bespoke to my company in the way that my company operates. And so that's what we're going to do. So I kind of think the future is going to move beyond just like building dashboards as code and actually being able to build these full stack data applications. We have two that I think are really cool that a customer, both customer projects. One customer at the moment built a mobile app for their customer success team. What happens is every morning, customers of theirs that are at risk of churning, they send them a report. Usually that report is an Excel sheet. So it's really boring. If you look through an Excel sheet, people don't really love it. And so what they did is they built a mobile app using Lightdash where every morning that data gets sent to them as like cards. So imagine like Tinder style, where you can swipe left or swipe right. And so you swipe left and you say like, this is a false positive. You swipe right and you say like, oh, actually this is an account we need to look at. And then it goes into a queue. Maybe it goes to Salesforce or somewhere else and it kind of notifies the user. So I think that one's really cool. The second one we have is we work with a company. I don't know if anyone here is like a Pokemon fan, but there's a company called PSA that grades Pokemon cards. So if you have a card and you want to know how much it's worth, you send it to this company, they give you a valuation, they send it back. So that company is a customer of Lightdash. And what they have is they have these big dashboards on the factory floor at PSA. So all the graders are looking at the dashboards to understand, are they doing, what's their throughput over time and all the rest of it. And so they said to us, they were like, this would be way more useful if it was on like an iPad in front of the user and they're able to click into the information, so that people could really quickly see what they want to see about their own performance as a grader. And so they were able to vibe code essentially like a mobile application that runs on their iPads that is still connected to Lightdash data. They had to have row-level security, so people shouldn't be able to see other people's data because it's sensitive. And they're able to build that in a couple of days, rather than building a dashboard, which I think is pretty cool. And I hope that's the future of what data is going to look like, that we're actually going to look more like software engineers building applications rather than just data people building dashboards. Cool. Okay, so this is still running. I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's almost done.
Then I have a question. So you mentioned about like we can change the data, and then that would impact like all the model would consume that metric. But then how do you know? I mean, you would be concerned if I change something, and then that would impact a lot of dashboard, especially if there are like golden dashboard or something like that. Yeah. So how do you validate that?
Do you mean in terms of making changes to the semantic
in
metrics?
the semantic layer or in some models that would change some metrics?
That's a really good question. So at least in Lightdash, the way that we approach this is, so there's a command in Lightdash which runs, we recommend running it very periodically, but it's a CLI command called Lightdash validate. And so what it does is, let's say every time you run dbt compile, or you just run your, you build your dbt models, your dbt project, you can run this Lightdash validate command. And what it will do is it will look for not just changes in the semantic layer, but also changes in your dbt project. So it might say like, hey, you've changed a model in your dbt project, which is connected to a metric in your semantic layer, which actually affects like 1,000 dashboards. I can show you what this looks like in the UI. So if I was to go back here, I'm going to switch to a different project that will have some problems in it. We'll come back to this one. So if I go here, hopefully this one has some error. Okay, this one doesn't have errors. Let me find one that has some errors in it. Okay, this one should definitely have some. It had errors earlier. Okay, here we go. So validation errors. So I can see here, there's over 500 errors inside this project. And for example, you can see here that there is a dimension that was in the semantic layer that no longer exists, or a metric. And if I want to, I can just say like, okay, for this one, let me go into this one. I can say I want to fix it, and I can see there's 2 occurrences. So this actually happens twice. So I could say like, okay, this was previously called this. Maybe now it's called something else. And I can say rename it, and it's going to fix that error for you. So there's a lot of observability into the kind of full lineage of what's happening.
So these errors are catching in the PR schema on the CI before it changes to the production.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
We show it to you in the UI as well because it's a nicer demo. But in reality, you're going to catch these in the CI/CD phase as part of your dbt pull request process. That's kind of where you want to see it, because you want to catch things before they break your dashboards, rather than like finding out from a user and someone says like, "Hey, this looks broken." Yeah. Okay. Wow. Damn. Okay. It's doing a lot today, so I'm excited to see what it's gonna shoot out for us. The fun thing about this, by the way, I've got my volume turned off right now. But one of the things I often have to do is I'll just leave cursor running, and then I have like a little ping, and it pings me to remind me that I need to come back to cursor. So the biggest problem is context switching, because I will have like 5 or 6 Claude code sessions running at once, and I'll sometimes forget what I was doing in like one of them. But I'll take that problem over the other problem of me having to manually build these dashboards any day. Question?
Like, how do we ensure the data integrity?
Do you mean data integrity at which layer or everywhere?
Like, how do we know like the data is actually true? Like, it's not hallucination.
It's a good question. So if you're using dbt, and I'm assuming a lot of us here are here tonight because we use dbt or we want to use dbt, you have the benefit of being able to use a lot of the testing infrastructure that dbt has. So you're familiar with like dbt exposures, the dbt tests. A lot of that can help make sure the lineage of the data is correct. And I kind of think of data integrity as really made up of 2 parts. The first is, does the data exist? So the reason why the data might not exist, your data pipeline might have failed. So you're just missing data. That is very easy to find. There's lots of observability tooling that you can buy or build that will check to make sure, have my pipelines run when I expected them to run? Does the data look roughly the way I expect it to run for the period in which it has passed? The second part about data integrity, which is a bit harder, is like, is the data actually corrupted for the qualitative data, is it corrupted for some reason? Like, has a metric drifted in a way that we didn't expect? That is much harder. And I think like there's lots of companies that have tried for a long time to try and pick up this like metric drift problem. I actually don't think that's solved by the semantic layer, by the way. I think that's like more of a data observability problem where you kind of want to say like, our revenue metric has been like slowly drifting over the last like 6 months, and now it seems like it's skewed a lot from where we were previously. But then people start asking a question about, well, has it skewed because our revenue has just changed, or has like something in the way that we're capturing the data affected how we're looking at revenue? I'll give you a really simple example. I worked with a company that noticed that their revenue changed very slowly over a period of 6 months. What they found in the end, and it took a long investigation, was that one of the, I'm not going to mention them, but a company that moves data, a data pipeline company, was actually rounding the revenue. So every revenue transaction that was to 2 decimal places was being rounded to 1 decimal place. If you multiply that over 1 million transactions a day, it's like a tiny error, but like has a outsized impact over time, you know? It was basically impossible to find. The only way they found it was eventually by running a sanity check of the data at every single stage of the pipeline and literally doing a random sample, saying compare 100 rows at like the raw data ingestion, then post like data movement, post DBT in the BI layer, and then figure out like which part of the puzzle wasn't working. But it took a lot longer than we expected because we just didn't think someone would do something like that. But I actually now think that there are tools that, I think someone mentioned they use Monte Carlo, and there are other tools out there now that kind of do a lot of this automatically for you. Yeah, testing will be your best friend. There's a phrase that I really like. I think I borrow it from someone at Microsoft. Maybe Bill Gates said it or someone else, which is there's no silver bullets. There's only lead. And it basically means that like, I think there's no quick fix, but there are lots of little tools that if you use them together, they can have like a huge impact. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, I think it's done something. I'm curious to see. Let's find out. It's working for a very long time. So let's go back to our dashboard. 2 minutes ago. Okay, so a couple of things have happened. So it has, I'm going to remove the filter again. So you can actually see at the top here, it's now created some tabs for us. So we've got an executive overview panel. I've got a sales execution. We'll get to those in a second. I hope these are the colors of the team. Okay, fantastic. Great. So we have some colors there. If we go to the other tabs, let's see what they've got in them. So this is the sales execution tab. And so here it's got a breakdown of our top performing reps, order size distribution, a bunch of other stuff, and then products and channels. I've got like another one. Okay, top products by revenue. Great. So it's built like a bunch of different stuff for us. To be honest, this is actually now quite a lot of chart building that if I had to do this by hand, it would probably be a day. If a data analyst came to you and said, I built this, it's taken me a day, you'd be like, that checks out. That's about right. But in reality, it took me about 3 or 4 minutes, apart from the beginning where I screwed up. It took about 3 or 4 minutes of just typing in some prompts and then going away and coming back. And I think this is like a super cool way to think about what our jobs could look like in the future, where we are not just building dashboards, we're actually able to be freed up to go and do much more interesting work. And the dashboard building becomes like the 20% of our job. The 80% of our job is doing really complex analysis, being able to do like hardcore data science, doing analysis that the agents and models can't yet do, doing forecasting, all those sorts of things. Yeah, there we go. I hope there are some CBTC fans in the room, so this is for you guys. But yeah, that was a short demo of how BI as code works, powered by your favorite coding agent.
So there's a question online.
我就会先一个掌声给那个，真的，我觉得很用心。
Okay, so there's a question. As you have been using BI as code business, I'd love to get your perspective. Since stakeholder will eventually be able to easily retrieve the metric they need through text-to-SQL AI agent or cloud desktop visualization, do you think there will still be ongoing demand for BI? For a data team's perspective, how much emphasis should we continue to place on BI work going forward?
That's a really good question. So obviously I run a BI platform company, so I'll be a little bit biased. But I think it is a good question to ask. And one of the reasons, like, it's something that we ask ourselves at Lightdash a lot, which is like, is the product and the service you're providing still valuable enough to people that they want to buy your tool? And if it isn't, then you need to figure out what the thing is that is valuable. I think text to SQL is amazing. And I think that the models will get perfect. We'll get good at writing perfect SQL in the next year or two. I think it's going to happen. The problem with text to SQL is not the models, though. They're already pretty good. The problem is that end users, they don't know what they're looking at. So if an end user, a non-technical person, asks for a SQL query, they're not going to be able to validate it. So they are still going to end up, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with, the data team is going to get a lot of requests, but instead they're going to be given a lot of AI-generated SQL. And an end user is going to say, hey, I tried to do this myself. Can you help? And now you're just going to be debugging lots of SQL. So you just move the problem. You've like shifted left the problem a little bit, but that's kind of what you've done. I think that the role of the BI platform for me, philosophically, is kind of only really 2 things. One is it's to meet every user where they are when it comes to their level of data literacy. If you're a data person, you can write SQL. If you're not a data person, maybe you use spreadsheets. If you don't use spreadsheets, maybe you want to click on a dashboard. If you don't even want to do that, maybe you just want to talk in Slack. And you want to like talk to your Slack agents, talk directly in Slack to your data, which we can also do. And I can show you a demo of that if we want to as well. So I think that's job number 1 for a BI tool, is to like create every avenue for a team to be able to provide their end users data in a way that makes sense for the user. You don't want to teach everybody SQL. That's not the answer. I think what you want to do is be like, hey, like what are you comfortable with? And we'll provide the data in that format. And the cost of doing that should be 0. So as a data team, if I'm building a spreadsheet, building a dashboard, creating like a custom Python script, whatever it may be, the cost should be 0. There should be no maintenance cost. And if that is true, then it doesn't really matter. Like, you know, I can provide it in every single format. The second reason a BI tool exists is for governance. So even though you can build a perfect dashboard on command every single time, people like knowing that every time I go to my dashboard, it's going to look the same. So they're like, I want to know that there's some level of predictability, some level of reliability that I can trust the dashboard. And so I think the BI tool's job is to maintain that, whether it's been in dashboards or anything else. And the second is this sort of like semantic concept of like holding that concept of what are the metrics in my business that are most important and kind of maintaining them. So I think, will it be in dashboards a year from now? I'm not sure, but I think that job will still exist because data teams don't want to spend their time doing, that's kind of the infrastructure work. You know, what BI tools do is provide the infrastructure for data teams to do real work. And I don't think people want to do infrastructure, they want to do real work.
So it sounds like the data team would like first maintain the of course the data pipeline, the semantic layer definition, and also kind of like the golden level of the dashboard, like the key things. And then but the rest, like if people have some random question, customize things, or just want a quick answer, they can just go to the agent.
I think so. I'm going to try and use the analogy I used yesterday again. Hopefully, this is the second time I'm using it, so hopefully it makes a bit more sense. So a customer explained this to me, and I thought it was a really nice analogy. So everyone here is a data person, I'm assuming. So we should think of ourselves as like Michelin star chefs. You know, we are the best of the best. We make phenomenal meals. People should pay us a lot of money for the meals that we make because they're so delicious. The problem is most people, when they have a request of the data team, it's often not for a Michelin star meal. They're asking for like a fried egg, you know, or they want a piece of toast or a sandwich. And so you don't need a Michelin star chef for that. You just need to teach this person how to use a toaster or how to fry an egg. And so the majority of data requests are really, really simple. And so I think what AI agents do is like the 80% of requests that you don't need the chef for, it takes care of those. But what that means is that the data team is now freed up to actually do those incredible meals that previously they never had time to because your really, you know, super powerful chef was making sandwiches and, you know, toast or whatever. And now they're able to make these phenomenal meals and do this incredible analysis that they previously never had the time or the bandwidth for. There's a term that I like using, which is urgent versus important. And I think most data people are familiar with this, which is we have to pick between working on what's urgent and what's important. And normally we always end up working on what's urgent because someone says, we need this right now. And you're like, is it important? You're like, I don't care. I need it now. And you're like, okay, well, I'll stop whatever I was planning to do and I'll work on this and my roadmap will never get shipped. And the idea here is just getting back your time as a data person to actually be able to ship that roadmap. So someone asked yesterday, are data people still going to have a job in like a year if these agents get really good? I think 100%. The best teams that I've seen using these AI agents, they're actually hiring more data people now because they're like, these data people are so valuable because the things that they can do are so powerful and all the really basic stuff is being done by the agents. But the really complex, hard analysis that requires business knowledge for you to understand the business and the people in it, that's what the data people are now doing. Cool. That was the end of my demos actually, folks. Thank you for listening. Like I mentioned, thank you. Like I mentioned, Lightdash is open source. I'm a huge fan of open source and open source communities. I think it's the best way for products to develop, for people to share information. We're all here because of dbt, which was, you know, started off as a brilliant open source tool and a great community. If you're interested, there's a Lightdash community on Slack where we discuss everything about like agents and AI and BI and all the rest of it. But otherwise, thank you all for listening, and thank you to our hosts here at dcard as well for giving us the space. I'm happy to hang around for questions either now from the chat live. I'll also be hanging out for a little bit afterwards.
Yeah. So raise your hand if you have any question.
Thank you for excellent demo. And also, I'm curious about what is the key difference between open source and cloud? Yeah, if anyone want to try, yeah.
Yes, great question. So the open source platform actually has pretty much all of the features that I showed you today. The only feature, so the features that are in the cloud version, building the dashboards as code that I showed you using Claude, that's all open source. You can go and do that now for free. You don't have to pay us any money. You can use it. It's amazing. The version where you're talking here, so let me switch back. So the version where you are talking to your agents in the UI, so this UI, this is in the cloud platform. So if you want to use the agents in the UI, these ones you have to pay for. Everything else in the platform, so like building dashboards, sharing them, everything else here, all the as code features, the developer workflow, all of that is open source. I actually think we give away like a lot of the product in the open source version. But the reason we do it is because most of the companies, a lot of the companies you work with are really large enterprises. So you work with folks like Workday, like Shopify, like ServiceNow. And these companies, they all started off as open source users because they're really big companies. You know, they want to make sure they want to try stuff, run it inside their own infrastructure. And so for us, it makes sense that we want to make the product really, really work, even as an open source tool. And then if you ever do decide that you want to move over to cloud, that's great. We're a team of engineers. We don't have a lot of salespeople. So we built things for other technical people like us. And we know that this is probably the best way for you to figure it out.
Okay, I like to ask two related questions. How do you manage AI skill, think for end users or in your teams? And what's the deployment frequency for version updates? And what led to do the decision to use this approach?
Yeah, sure. So you mean how often do we update the skills that I showed you in Lightdash? Then how often do we update like Lightdash's versions? Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. So the skills we update all the time. The simple reason is because we're still shipping lots of features every day for Lightdash. So every time we ship a new feature, we need to make sure the skills are up to date. So for example, if we add a new chart type, let's say we added like a Sankey chart into Lightdash, then we want to update the skills so that Claude or Codex or Cursor knows how to like use that to build a Sankey chart the next time it has to. So the skills we probably update like once a day. We recommend people update the skills very frequently. Similarly, we deploy to Lightdash probably 4 or 5 times a day. So we upgrade very, very frequently. Yeah, a lot.
And how do end user sync your skills version?
So if you're on cloud, then we handle it all for you.
Okay.
So we update your platform for you. If you're self-hosting, then we just recommend at least like once a day or once every few days, you just like run Lightdash install skills. Most people have it as part of like an update pipeline. So when you update the version of Lightdash, you'll update your CLI. So the skills are actually part of the Lightdash command line. So you can just say like if you update the Lightdash command line, it will update the skills as well. Okay. So it's fairly automated. If you're using some sort of CI/CD or automated pipeline, it will do it for you.
And how do you cooperate with skills? Because I'm designing the workflow with my engineer, and we are discuss how to maintain our skills, because some skills are general and some is personal, and we just start. We have no ideas now.
Yeah, it's a good question. So Lightdash as an engineering team is very unique. I think we've made a lot of decisions that are a lot of people were like, whoa, like when they found out we were doing it, they were like, that's a bit wild. But one of the ones that is very common is we basically have a centralized set of skills for the engineering team. That is a repo that all the Lightdash engineers have access to, and everybody can contribute to it. So we allow everybody to contribute to the skills, develop new skills or update existing ones for the engineering team. That can happen as much as you want. We encourage everybody to use whatever coding agent they want to and to keep those skills up to date. There's a blog post by, I forget their name, but it's one of the founders of Claude. And he wrote a blog post, I think it was a month ago, and he said, here's how Anthropic uses Claude, like how the internal engineering team at Anthropic uses Claude. And he has a really good description of how they build and maintain their skills throughout the team. I think we copied basically that.
Okay. And my last question, how often do you spend your time on develop skills or develop the UI or backend or something?
Oh, that's a good question. It's probably fairly evenly split at the moment. If you're at the beginning of your journey, you're going to spend a lot more time developing your skills. And then over time, it'll be a lot less. So I'd probably say now for Lightdash, maybe like 20% of our time is on the skills. And the other 40 is split between building UI features, building backend features. And we only update the skills when we need to. Okay. But we did a lot of investment initially to build the base layer.
Thank you.
No worries.
I'm asking about more like the finance side, because with recent SaaS validations trends going downwards recently, how do you what's your take on the market for this?
On the, you mean the, what do they call it? The SaaS apocalypse. All the SaaS stocks going to zero. Yeah. I'm both excited about it. I mean, that sounds bad because it sounds like I'm excited about people not doing well. That's not true. I think it's, so I'll start off by saying, so Lightdash, the way that we price Lightdash, it's not a per seat model. So most SaaS tools, you buy user licenses. You say like, got 100 people, I'm going to buy 100 licenses. Lightdash isn't priced that way. So we've never been affected by like traditional SaaS models. But one of the reasons why I started Lightdash was that I believed that most SaaS tools were overpriced. So when I was buying, and I've spoken very publicly about this, so I'm happy to say it here to everyone, that I think most BI tools are way too expensive. Like I remember at one point Looker was quoting us like $100,000. I was like, that's crazy. For like, as the engineering part of my brain was like, this is before Claude Code. I was like, I could build this. And we tried to. And so I think what's happening is it's not that the market is going down. I think the market is correcting. And I think people are seeing like, well, actually, what is the actual value of that particular SaaS tool? And it might not be as much as you think. But I don't think it's affecting everyone equally. There are some tools that are doing incredibly well in the AI world because everyone just decided this is super valuable. I also don't want to build it myself. So I'm just going to like give you like Zoom, for example, like people don't really want to build their own video conferencing software. So you're like, I'll pay $8 a month for Zoom. That's great. I'll pay $14 a month for Slack. That's great. But then there are other tools where people are like, why are we paying so much for this tool that like nobody really loves? And we could probably build our own version. And a lot of companies have, like I'm trying to think what we've built internally. So we built like a meeting recorder. So, for like taking notes in meetings, somebody on our sales team built their own meeting recorder that was custom for us, and it's bespoke for Lightdash. It works really, really well. So yeah, I think kind of that's what's happening. I think will the market, I don't think it's going down. I think it's correcting. I also think that like the best products will still make a lot of money, and you will see that the companies that are actually valuable, that were always valuable, they're going to carry on doing really well. I think everyone else, it's not that they're doing badly, it's just that maybe they weren't as valuable as we thought they were. That's probably like my very candid answer. But yeah. I'm also curious if anyone disagrees with me on that one. I'm definitely keen to hear.
I have a question about like building semantic layers. Yeah, so to my knowledge, a semantic layer is like I can query a matrix from a single one table and join with the dimension tables.
Yes.
Yeah, but in reality, especially when working in enterprise, it's like because the data volume is very large, so we need to pre-aggregate or for each subdomain. Yeah. And in this case, like how do we manage the matrix in the semantic layer so it can be like consistent among different data models and tables?
It's a really good question. So there's a couple of bits to your questions. I'm going to answer them each bit by bit. So the first bit is like, how do you handle metrics that mean different things to different people? In Lightdash, and I talk about this a lot, that people think of a semantic layer as a list. It's not a list. It's actually a graph. So like a metric is connected to another metric. It's also connected to submetrics. Like this is the finance version of this metric, this is the operations version of this metric. So thinking of it as a list is like, it's kind of a bit too simple. And you kind of want to think of it as a tree. So we have this version, this kind of view in Lightdash. I'm going to let's try and see if it works. But the idea here is that you can actually, let me see one that actually has some metrics in it. Okay. So this is a very, very simple tree. But the idea is that this is like our semantic layer that's being visualized as a tree or like a graph of nodes with directions between them of how different metrics are connected. And you can do this programmatically. So I built this chart off of the semantic layer. I didn't define these arrows in the UI. And this is like another way to visualize your kind of the same semantic layer. Your question though, and so sorry, to answer your specific question, what you might have is you might have like a revenue metric here at the top, and you might have two sub definitions of it where you say like, hey, this is like the finance definition of revenue. This is the operations definition of revenue. These are the dimensions that finance is interested in. These are the dimensions that marketing are interested in. And that sort of becomes your like roll-up table that you can start building. You can start building these like pre-aggregated materializations that kind of live sometimes in the warehouse if you want to build like pre-aggregate, like if you want to aggregate the tables beforehand. The way it works in Lightdash is a little bit different. We actually handle the pre-aggregation for you. So what happens is if you're looking at a dashboard, the tables that underlie it, we can actually roll those up into a cache, like a Parquet file inside Lightdash using like Parquet and DuckDB. And what it will do is essentially handle all the complexity of the pre-aggregation layer so that you're not hammering the warehouse every single time you want to run a query or a subquery.
Actually, if I update the definition of a single matrix, then all the definition of the pre-calculated pre-aggregation in the Parquet file will be updated.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I see a question online. So say a company wants to start building their AI Power BI dashboards with or without Lightdash. What would you say the biggest investment should be for a successful end product?
So if you're building AI BI with or without Lightdash, you need two things. You need some sort of semantic layer. Doesn't have to be Lightdash's, but it needs to be something. My advice when picking a semantic layer is start simple. Don't start with the most complex ones. People have this tendency to think of like every single edge case that they might ever have in the next 20 years. And I think actually what you want to do is the opposite, which is be like, how do I make the smallest semantic layer that shows us anything that's useful? And often that's the simplest semantic layer, the most pragmatic, the least amount of documentation, the fastest to start on day one. The second thing you need is you need a way to be able to build visualizations as code. If you're doing it programmatically, you can do it with a charting library. I've obviously showed you like Lightdashes today, but you could just install what's it called, matplotlib. If you're using Python, you could just use eCharts or something else and use those two things. So if you're doing it yourself, you want to roll your own, those would be the two bits you need. Lightdash tries to package them up for you, but I would say semantic layer, chart building framework, those are the two minimum. And the two folks who use Databricks here, they mentioned it. Databricks has a little bit of this. So Databricks kind of gives you like a very basic charting functionality out of the box. So that's like another example. Yeah. Yeah.
Then before we have a dinner, so you mentioned about like deciding the semantic layer where it should be is a like one-way door decision. So you need to make it consciously. So my question would be like, what would be the pros and cons, or what would be a best fit for example, now like data warehouse provide semantic layer, dbt provides semantic layer, BI tool provides semantic layer. So what would be the difference from if I want to set up the semantic layer in warehouse, ETL tool, or BI? Like what's the pros and cons, and what would be the fit for like different types of company?
Makes sense. Yeah, it's a good question. Again, you might receive a slightly biased answer.
Yeah, of course.
But maybe I'll talk about what is important, like in your selection process, is like whether you're picking a semantic layer built like a Cube, DBT, at scale, Snowflake, Databricks, they all have their own Lightdash. You want to look for the one that is the most interoperable, because what you want is one that plays nicely with other tools. So whichever one you think is going to work with the tools that your company uses, because you actually don't need it to work with every tool ever. But if you're like, hey, look, at our company, we use Tableau and we use Jupyter notebooks. So we need something that has a Python SDK and works with Tableau. That's it. That's kind of all you need. And maybe you can think about like one or two use cases you might have in the future. That's kind of as far as I would go. The second one is cost. Not all semantic layers are the same. Some of them require you to pay money to use them. For some people, that's a good thing. For some people, that's like a non-starter, because they don't want to pay the warehouse query cost and then also pay the semantic layer cost on top of that. So I would say like think about those two things. And kind of, there's no right decision for everyone, but there's a right decision for your company based on, I think, the answer to those questions.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other question? Then we can take a picture first. I need a picture, and then we can have a rest, like let Hazam have some rest. And finally, then can we have round of applause, like for like fantastic Q&A?